Hey everybody, welcome back to Trey's Models. We're going to do a quick bitch update on the projects we've been working on lately. I did a lot of progress on the half track. The build itself is basically done. Working on the base for right now. Let me go ahead and get him out of the way. He'll be on the base when it's all said and done. But we got the weathering done. Did a combination of simple weathering after I put a dull coat on it. We used panel liner from AK and these different weathering powders from Tamiya. Mixed them together and did put the powder down, then put a little bit of the panel liner down, kind of a wet on dry application, and then reapplied it as necessary. And kind of kept it subtle. Didn't want to be too overpowering with it. And I did come back and touch up some of the faces on the figures and some of the clothing where it was a little too stark. The transitions were a little too abrupt in the shadows and the folds of the cloth. But basically done, ready for the base. And we'll put wraps on this one and have a video up, complete build, not a complete build video, but just kind of where I hit some snags and stuff, because this has been out long enough. There's enough build videos on it. So we'll just do a quick kind of what we ran into as problems and how we avoided them, when it worked around them. But all in all, it was a good kit. Didn't really have a lot of issues, mainly the ones that I generated myself. But that's that. And next up on the bench, we did the Tiger 1, or we're in the process of doing the Tiger 1 from Tamiya. This is the old kit released back in the 80s. Not a bad kit. Did do some photo etch grill upgrades, and got some photo etch tool clamps from, who's this? Scale Model Accessories. So we're gonna get rid of the molded on clamps and put these in place. And in preparation for that, I went ahead and cut off all the molded ones on all the tools, and we'll give these a go. We already did some of the photo etch upgrade on the fenders, and also we changed the smoke launchers and put the notches on the tubes and added the electrical wiring for those and the electrical wiring for the headlights up front. And also went and reworked the welds from the factory with some Tamiya putty. And for the rework on the welds on the turret, I tried some straight up Tamiya putty, and it worked. It's a little messy. Probably the two-part epoxy would be a little easier to work with and roll it into little snakes. Fish it down in there, kind of like Night Shift does. And then for the front one, I wanted to try something different, and I tried some of this Milliput. And it was a little easier to work with, not quite so messy, but it basically accomplished the same thing. And also glued the road wheels all together so we could take these apart and do the weathering behind them. Not that you're going to see much of it, but I want to go ahead and add it in there. And also on the back of the turret box, added these photo etch latches on there, and of course the metal barrel, because the kit one was kind of sketchy. But that's where we're at with the Tiger build. Next up, we'll be throwing some paint on it after I get these Scale Model accessory clamps in place. And we'll move on from there. And also, we did texture the sides to make it look more like rolled steel. And finding out about these Tigers, much like some of the aircraft with all the different variants, the early Tigers, depending on where they were and what time they were, there's a confusing array of what's supposed to be there and what's not. There's different air filters on the back for different ones. Going down the rabbit hole of that is kind of confusing, but I'm trying to get it sorted and stay as accurate as I can. It's kind of like the P47 with the bubble. They're not all Ds. Some of the bubble top P47s were actually Cs, so it gets kind of confusing there as well. So kind of same with the wingy things, with the tank things. Got to figure out what it is you're trying to do and try to be as accurate as you can without spoiling the fun of the build. But and I had to do the Tiger because according to the rumor around the water fountain is you're not an armor modeler until you've completed a Tiger. So to get this done, I guess I'll qualify. One of the other upgrades we did with the Tiger 1 was we're ditching the rubber band style tracks that came in the kit, mainly because they're the rubber band tracks, but also because they don't have the hollowed out area in the guide cleats. And that's a pretty important deal with the Tigers. So off those go, and we ordered a set of tank craft tracks, and they're resin, and they come with the outer and inner pins, hull side and outer side, and this is what they look like after they're assembled. 96 links per side, and they are workable. Really nicely molded too. Really impressed with their quality. And after we got them together, we shot them with some of the Master Modeler's iron, and then came back and weathered them with the Vallejo rust pigments. And they'll get weathered more as the build goes on, but really impressed with these. Really like them. It's kind of tedious putting them together, but that's with any type of link system like this. But the pins, unlike the normal wires that you get with the metal tracks, these pins have little I don't know what you call them, ridges right underneath the heads. They're really hard to see, but once you push them into place, they actually lock into place. And I only had, out of this whole run, I think I had 2 or 3 on each side that didn't want to stay, but you get plenty of extras. So if that's the case, just swap out the ones that aren't working for you and grab new ones. But yeah, these are really nice. Highly recommend these. These are awesome. Yeah, in the Tiger kit includes these hoses for the intakes back here, and they're a woven kind of fabric material, and the ends, even with a very sharp number 11 blade on there, will fray a little bit. So you can just give it a little bit of a heat. Don't get it too hot, it'll shrink up. Ask me how I know. But that'll seal those ends down and give you that nice clean edge instead of having that frayed edge on there. And I did apply these with super glue. I used the Star Bond to actually make the connection points here, and it did wick through the fabric quite a bit, held it in place really well. Really like this stuff. It's good glue. Then I came back with the super thin and very carefully wicked it into the fabric, and it toughened it right up, so it's not going to get distorted, or even if you try to push on it a little bit, it's nice and rigid now. I would not hit this with kicker. Enough of that CA gets down into that fabric and you hit it with the kicker, it's going to actually bubble up. Probably distort it too, because it generates a little bit of heat when you hit it with the kicker. So avoid hitting it with the kicker if you're going to wick it with the thin CA. And lastly, the front spare tracks. There's the kit supplied ones that would go right here. And here's the tank craft replacements that we're going to use for it. So it was a pretty significant upgrade quality wise. These aren't hateful by any stretch, but you definitely have to drill out the holes on those guide cleats if you wanted it to be more scale, and it sticks out because it's going to be right on the front of the tank where everybody would see it. So definitely worthwhile. Next up, just what the internet modeling world had needed was another build of the ancient Tamiya Panther. Now, two reasons why I got this kit. One, it's going to be a test mule for doing Zimmerit for the first time. And two, because in a previous video on the channel, we mentioned about the Lost Collection. And this kit dates back, I built this for the first time, I think I was 9, maybe 10 years old when I built this kit. And this is one of the ones that got lost when my collection was stolen. But so this, I'm going to build it out of the box using the 2-piece metal barrel. And the only thing I'm going to do different from out of the box is actually, like I said, try my hand at some scratch Zimmerit. I'm not sure what medium I'm going to use. I've been looking at some stuff online, thinking maybe the Tamiya putty method. But we'll see. I'm going to do a couple test pieces before I try it on the actual model. But it's a pretty basic kit. I mean, what do you want for 20 bucks? I got it for 20 bucks, free shipping. There's not much to it. It's a real simple build. Goes together fairly quickly. There's no fit issues with it. Do need a little bit of filler up in the front and in the back, a little bit across the mantler here. But for what it is, it's going to make a great test mule because it's not a big investment. And depending on how things go with this, I may or may not use this method of Zimmerit when I go to actually do the Tamiya Elephant that's newly acquired and in the stash. So that's where we're at with the Tiger build and the Panther build. And the Italeri C130 update. Had to wet sand basically the whole top surfaces back down again. After I let it sit for a few days, I had some ghost seams come back to haunt me, especially back here in the tail fin area. I finally got rid of those, and there was one coming along the spine that was really hateful. Still going to have some more to do on the underside. I've got a seam that opened up on the bottom there. Probably should have put some pieces of styrene sheet on the inside of this as I was building it to kind of brace across. These are pretty long runs, and this plastic's pretty old and brittle on these older kits. I didn't think about it at the time, hindsight being what it is. In the future, if I get another one of these older kits like that, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put some inside where the seams are, some reinforcement pieces of sheet styrene, hold it together a little better. But I think for the most part the top surfaces are pretty much ready. We'll start masking it up and putting the other colors on. We'll finish up the spinner and the prop details on these and be well on our way to making the Fat Albert. And last but not least, we got the GSXR 750 by Hasegawa. Waiting on some photo etch parts to arrive for it. We're going to upgrade the chain to photo etch, and also, like I mentioned before, the stock exhaust is a no-go. So I found the right size tubing that we're going to scratch build the Yoshimura pipe with. And another issue that's going to be a stumbling block is the full-scale motorcycle that we're replicating doesn't have a wet clutch. It's got a dry clutch. They do actually mold the actual clutch detail up underneath this cover plate, but on the dry clutch version, this cover plate obviously is not there because the dry clutch sticks out of the oil, hence dry clutch. So not sure how I'm going to work around that just yet. Obviously going to involve some scratch building, but we'll get to that. And the other thing we're still sourcing are the rims. We're not using the stock rims. The one we're replicating has Marvick rims on it, so still sourcing that as well. But cleaned up the rest of the bodywork. It's all ready to go except for the fuel tank. Still have to fill that void on the bottom. Finish drilling out the rotors, and we can start putting this together. But everything else looks really good. It's nice, clean molds. No issues with that. So far, the fit's been awesome. So that's a wrap for the basic bench update. Don't think we missed anything. No, well, that's going to be a wrap. I think we're squared away. Appreciate y'all watching. Please hit that like button if you haven't, or subscribe if you haven't already. And be good to each other out there, and we'll see you on the next video. And a sneak peek of the base for the half track. Still a long way to go. That should sit in there something like that, but you get the idea. It's going to be kind of a dry creek bed scene. That's that. Hey everybody, welcome back to Trey's Models. I'm going to do a quick bitch update. You can always gather up. Oh, I misplaced the box. Dang it. I just had it. What did I do with it, Wes? And I tried some regular, what was that? I'm having a brain fart. Start over. Well, thanks for watching. Please hit that like button and subscribe, and I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Y'all be good to each other, and we'll see you on the next one.